keep it live, cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage, and I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares, nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch a scenario, my stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away, asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio Show. Once again with your host, Nick Bernabe, here on UCY.tv. I'm really happy to be back with you, and I'm glad everybody's joining us. Sorry I missed on Monday. I was actually unplugging and getting a break from all this madness that has become 2016. Took a little vacation down in Mexico, Rosarito Beach, pretty nice, good times. Anyway, I was missing a lot of action as I was down there. I wasn't able to get internet because there was a windstorm and a few other things happened. Anyway, some things have been going down at the DNC. We're going to talk all about that tonight on the show. And we're going to talk about this election in general, because this election really is an insult to our intelligence, if I may say so myself. It's become just an exercise in ridiculousness and so many crazy things happening over and over and over. I mean, I don't know how much we could take before people start losing it or just getting pissed off or whatever. I mean, I guess a little bit of both is probably the more likely scenario. Anyway, we're gonna be joined by a panel tonight. We're gonna be taking a few calls. Right now, I'm being joined by our awesome journalist Jake Anderson. What's up, Jake?
Not much. Just listened in a little bit on the Republican National Convention going on right. Oh, I mean, sorry, the Democratic Convention. It's the same absolute bullshit. So it sounded so similar. Yeah, there was they were during Biden's speech. I was listening to some weird radio station. I couldn't believe it. They interrupted it to cut to an action going on at the entrance. Like 30 to 40 people were blocking the entrance and refusing to let delegates in, and they were chanting, "We are the 99%." And they're basically trying to they were trying to demand that the Democratic Party make concessions and go on record saying that they're going to destroy the superdelegate system and end Citizens United. Of course, Hillary's already said she's going to do that, but we need to be able to hold her to that. And so, yeah, there's a lot of action going on there. I'm sure. I don't know if DB's joining us, but isn't he there?
He's not on yet. He's having a little bit of a delay, but we're going to get him on as soon as possible.
Well, sounds like there's a lot. Sounds like it's more contentious than the media would have you think.
Oh, you mean is he there in Philly? Yeah, I think he actually is there. Maybe that's why he's taking a while. He may be right in the middle of something and trying to find a place that's kind of quiet to talk to us. I forgot that he was going to be down there. Yeah, so hopefully he calls in and gives us a report from the ground, because I know he's outside and he's probably joining in some of the protests and things going on. So that's going to be really interesting. So first off, you bring up DB, and this is something that he's been talking about pretty much relentlessly on the show, is that there's a possibility that the party could split, the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. I confuse them just like you did, Jake, because they sound so similar at times, and their policies are almost identical. So, I mean, I don't know why there's two separate parties to begin with. We might as well just make it a one-state party and admit that that we're living in an oligarchy. But anyway, we got two pseudo-parties. And DB's been saying that there's a chance the party could split, and I think his theory has been given a little more credence here following what's gone on at the DNC. I believe it was yesterday. Just throughout the DNC, there's been interruptions. I mean, Bernie Sanders gave his speech, and he was basically telling everybody to vote for Hillary Clinton in order for basically no other reason, other than to stop Donald Trump. And he was booed throughout his speech by his own delegates. And then his delegates staged a walkout. They walked out of of the convention. That was pretty ballsy, if I may say. And we have an article up on the Anti-Media today from Kerry Wedler that's titled "Bernie Sanders' Supporters Prove They're More Principled Than He Is." So that's pretty interesting. And basically, the argument being made here is that they've kind of stuck to their principles and are basically not going for the lesser of two evils, which would be Clinton over Trump. And Bernie Sanders isn't. I mean, Bernie Sanders is clearly they've got to him. I don't know whether it was just because he thought he was being pragmatic. I don't know if they promised him something. I don't know if he was not paid off, but bought off with some kind of position within Hillary's administration. I don't know what it is. There's plenty of theories that can be spread around. I've seen kind of memes that are supposed to be funny that said, "Oh, now he's off of Hillary Clinton's hit list." I mean, it's funny, but it's kind of not. But it looks like his supporters are actually, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are sticking to their convictions. They're sticking to their principles. And they're not going to vote for Hillary Clinton. And they walked out of the delegates. A lot of the delegates walked out of the convention. Jake, what do you make of this, man?
What do I make of the people walking out?
Yeah, the delegates, man. It's like almost like an open rebellion against Hillary Clinton down there at the DNC. Yeah,
I mean, well, DB predicted it, and he was right. And unfortunately, it's I don't know. It's kind of rule by consensus right now, and the people there just probably don't care at all. That Freddie Gray's the people that killed him were completely exonerated today. Not one mention of that at the convention, not one mention of anything involved with Black Lives Matter at the convention. There is just a massive split between the elite Democrats and the real Democrats. And Thomas Frank wrote a book recently about kind of how the Democratic Party has gotten to this point and how it's basically a party of the elites now. Pretending to be, disguising themselves in this kind of moral righteousness of working for the working class, when really it's the same as the Republicans. It's mostly just rich white people, consolidating as much power as they can. And it's a sad state, and I think I'm convinced there will be some kind of split party coming from this, because the people are just it's just too transparent. I mean, with the emails that came out confirming what everyone knew, it's just people aren't going to tolerate this kind of crap anymore. It's just not going to happen.
I couldn't believe that Bernie still went with the endorsement of Clinton and basically anointing her at the convention, even following these WikiLeaks email dumps that showed that the DNC was actively working against him, dude. They were actively working for Clinton. I mean, everybody already knew that was going on, and everybody could speculate about it, and everybody was called a conspiracy theorist who said it. But now that we're vindicated on this, I would expect Sanders to be like, you know what? Screw this. This is bullshit. I'm not going to endorse Clinton until something is done about what happened. And I mean, what's her name? Debbie Wasserman Schultz resigns from the DNC, and then she's hired by the Clinton campaign. I mean, it's like
it's almost like they're
slapping the.
It's really like they're purposely. It's almost like they're purposely laughing in the faces of progressives. It's mind blowing.
It really seems that way, man. It's like, come on, dude. Like, how?
Yeah, but Bernie Sanders is now, and that's Kerry's article was awesome. Yeah, I mean, he needs to get off the stage. He's done now. Like, his supporters can take over, like Kerry said, because he obviously doesn't have the strength to go forward anymore. He hit his wall. He's gone as far as he can go in terms of courage. That he didn't say anything subversive or derisive on stage, calling out to the reality of the situation is just not acceptable. Like, we all knew he was going to endorse her. Obviously, he was going to endorse her, but that he didn't embed any kind of language to move forward with, any kind of template for the new party to work with. He really just railroaded himself completely.
Yeah, man, and I don't want to go too hard on Sanders here because, I give him credit for starting a movement, even if he is sabotaging it here at the end. At least he started it, and, I give him that credit. But that being said, I mean, the other thing is that he's also talked directly about third-party candidacies, and he's like, nope, there's no chance in hell that Jill Stein could win, so I think my supporters should vote for Hillary Clinton and not for Gary Johnson or any other of these guys. And you know what? I don't know if you saw this yet, Jake. You know what Bernie Sanders did today?
No.
He announced that he's resuming his role in the Senate as an independent. He's out of the Democratic Party now. So this is like, yesterday he's giving a speech about uniting in the Democratic Party to stop Trump, and he's back in the Senate as an independent because he was elected as an independent.
I think he's just genuinely I think he's just at a point where he just does not want Trump to get elected. I mean, and, I've taken a principled stand on this and gotten into some just raging Facebook arguments about it, which is why I'm not getting on. I'm not using Facebook for anything except messaging or groups until after the election, and I'm dead serious because of the arguments I've already gotten into. There's people that are taking a principled stand that they're not going to vote for warmongers, they're not going to vote for corporatists, they're not going to vote for people that are transparently corrupt. And then there's people who think that that's a privileged position, that there are minorities and marginalized groups that are going to be significantly more damaged by Trump's rhetoric and hate speech than they would a Clinton presidency. And that was kind of the crux of the argument I got. It's the whole thing is it's such an insane election that it's come to this.
It really is, man. And so, here's the thing is that in some ways I think these arguments are correct. Under Trump, minorities in the United States would be faced with a significantly worse scenario. Under Clinton, though, black and brown people around the world would be faced with a significantly worse scenario. So it's a lose-lose no matter which way you slice and dice it. It's like,
that's kind of the point. I ended up not going full force with it because people's emotions are just too tied up in this right now. But the people I were arguing with, they were they had like their parents had been immigrants. One was a black gay guy, and these identity politics get wrapped up. And look, I get it. I mean, if I weren't a straight white male, I'd probably be more scared of Trump. But it's pick your poison, and it's which side of American exceptionalism do you want to stand on? Like, are you going to say that these lives of these marginalized people in the U.S. are more important than the marginalized lives across the world? Is that the argument people really want to make? Because let's have that argument. Like, if you really want to make the argument that American lives are more important than Syrian lives or other lives around the world, I don't think that's an argument you want to make. But maybe if you do, then go ahead and keep arguing that a vote for Hillary is worth it. But I think that's a specious argument And I think history is not going to be kind to us if we start making those kinds of arguments.
Exactly. I mean, and it's a self-defeating point for people that say that not voting or abstaining from voting or voting for a third party comes from a point of privilege. I mean, that argument is defeated by the fact that, just like we just discussed, I mean, the whole thing you're saying is that if you're voting for Hillary, then you're saying American people matter more than people around the world that she's going to be bombing the hell out of. With, you know, she has a long track record of bombing the hell out of people around the world. And I was just watching some video from the DNC, and it has to be the most ironic thing that I've ever seen in throughout these conventions. Is Kane, which I don't know. I don't know if anybody even knows who this guy is, but he's Hillary Clinton's vice president pick. I don't even know his first name, but his last name is Kane. He was literally just talking about how he was a Jesuit missionary down in Honduras, and he was doing work in Honduras, helping out Honduran children and helping out when he was, you know, back in his college days or in his youth days. Does he not realize that Hillary Clinton just backed a military coup in Honduras in 2009?
Yeah. I forgot to mention that one too. Yeah, no, it's insane, the irony. I forgot to, in the argument I was with, I forgot about her fomenting the coup in Honduras.
Honduras, Libya, Syria.
But the argument I was having was, this guy said, you know, under Trump, basically, me and my family are going to be second-class citizens. And, you know, this is a direct existential threat to my life. And so I don't know how it got back around to it, but I said, well, I happen to know that you support the policies of Hillary Clinton, so are you worried about the lives of, like, say, a Syrian refugee family? And he wouldn't answer the question, but I really do think it's starting to boil down to, I just think people cannot see past the fact that they don't care about people that aren't in America, and that's a, you know, very dangerous place to be.
Exactly, and the other point I want to make about this argument is that Trump is racist in rhetoric, and he's xenophobic in rhetoric. Clinton is racist in policy. You know, if you look back at the crime bill, I think it was the 1994 crime bill that Bill Clinton ended up signing. Hillary Clinton was a cheerleader for this bill. And it's been called a very damaging policy for the black community. It criminalized black youth, and I mean, she even referred to minority youth in some cases as super predators, man. So it's hard to make the case that Clinton would be good for minorities because she's really bad on economy. She's really bad when it comes to the drug war. She's really bad when it comes to mass incarceration. These are things that affect the minority communities the hardest.
Yeah, it's really frustrating trying to... I guess I don't know I sort of understand that propaganda is a part of it, but that the larger black community doesn't understand how detrimental the Clintons have been to their community is a testament, I think, to the power of that kind of propaganda. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Exactly. In general, the black community is going to be voting for Hillary Clinton by default because she's a Democrat. If you look at the actual activist community, the Black Lives Matter activists and people like that, most of them were supporting Bernie Sanders because they understood how bad Clinton was in the past on her policies regarding that have affected the black community. The problem is that people are taking, rather than looking at history and looking at the track record of these candidates, they're looking at their current rhetoric, which can just be anything. And Clinton has shown herself to be willing to pander to anybody. I mean, she was on that radio program and said she carries around a jar of hot sauce in her purse.
Right.
I mean, she's willing to pander to anyone. And if these very low information voters, which I would consider anybody voting for Clinton or for Trump, I consider them low information because they're literally basing their voting on their current rhetoric. If that's the case, man, like, they have not done their research, they have not done their homework, and that's part of the problem with democracy, dude, is that the majority of people that are going to be voting, I would say 80, 90%, they don't even know what the hell is going on, dude. And the problem, and this is probably the biggest problem overall, and this is, it supersedes politics, it supersedes the United States. This is a problem throughout the world. People do not read and remember stuff. That's the biggest thing, and that's, I recently read Fahrenheit 451, and that's the message I got from that book. Great, amazing book, and I wish everybody would read that, and I hope people that do read it understand it. The biggest problem is that people just don't remember the past and the things that have gone on. I mean, looking at Trump, I mean, all you got to do is look back and look at the stuff that went on in pre-Nazi Germany and see, okay, that's a good reason to not support Trump, because I've seen that before. And if you look back at the past of Hillary Clinton, it's like, okay, I see that she voted for Iraq. I see that she voted for that she supported the 1994 crime bill. I see that she supported NAFTA. I see that she, receives not donations, but funding from the private prison industry, Wall Street, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then, if people were well informed, they would say, okay, I see these two candidates, and I'm going to say, okay, I don't want these two candidates. I'm going to look for someone else, and then their research would lead them to someone like Gary Johnson, Jill Stein, or one of the other independent candidates, and then we would be looking at a much different election. But that's the problem, dude. This election it's an insult to our intelligence if we know what the hell's going on. But for the average American, I hate to say it because I don't like generalizing, but the average American doesn't know what the hell is going on. They literally are watching CNN and Fox News and MSNBC, and they're seeing the words that are being said by these candidates, and they're not examining any deeper than that. Today I saw that the Democrats were like shifting the blame for these DNC leaks to Russia.
Right.
So instead of saying, "Oh, damn, you know what? We've been wrong. We shouldn't have done this. We're gonna take credit for this mistake, and we're gonna fix it by doing this and doing that and doing this and that and the other." Instead, they're like, "Well, no, it's Russia. It's Russia's fault for leaking this corruption." It's like, let's not address the corruption. Let's try to deflect it to blame Russia instead.
It's unbelievable, dude. It's been on the front page of Huffington Post for 2 straight days. It's a total psyop. It's a total, absolute, complete, and total distraction from what happened. And I mean, even Snowden came out and said that, who was the company they had that was trying to isolate the signatures or something from I don't know. It's very fishy. We don't know. Either way, it's way, way too early. You can't just immediately come out and say Russia did this. We're in the middle of a Cold War. They weaponized WikiLeaks. That's very irresponsible that these, Huffington Post and CNN are putting these on their front pages right off the bat when it's not proven, instead of focusing on what we do know, which is that these emails were leaked. It's just like, it's unbelievable.
It's insane, dude. And you know what? It really does show you where the Democratic Party stands when it comes to Russia. And I've said this before, man. Russia is afraid of Hillary Clinton because they think that she's going to start a regional war because she's gone on record saying that she wants a no-fly zone in Syria. That's an automatic direct confrontation with Russia. If Hillary Clinton is elected and she follows through on this, this rhetoric about making a no-fly zone in Syria, that puts us on a direct path to a actual direct war with Russia instead of what we have right now, which is a proxy war going on in Syria between Russia and the Western allied people. Putting a no-fly zone there would actually cause a direct conflict with Russia. And Hillary Clinton, judging not only by her rhetoric, but by her track record of all of this foreign policy aggressiveness, she would probably do that. And so it's the fact that the Democrats are like just jumping to the blame with Russia. It really is like kind of reminiscent of like the Red Scare and, like the old Cold War propaganda and blame Russia for everything. It reinforces the stuff that we've been talking about how the neocons are going to be getting behind Hillary Clinton because she's more reliably going to be forceful on foreign policy. Yeah, Trump's going to be bad domestically, and who knows what kind of unrest his presidency will cause at home. But Hillary Clinton is very reliable overseas, and she's going to continue engaging in these wars that Bush, helped start. And then Obama continued, and Clinton will just further them and make them even bigger. They don't know that Trump will do that for sure. So that's why the neocons and the defense establishment and all these kind of people are getting behind Trump. Getting behind Clinton. And so, as much as this talk about the Russians being behind the hack is kind of fear-mongering, Red Scare type Cold War propaganda, it honestly wouldn't even surprise me, though, because Russia is scared to death of Hillary Clinton. They do not want her to win. And if you look at all of the leaks that have come from this Guccifer 2.0 guy, all of them have been against the DNC. And if you look at the Russian state-funded news outlets like RT and Sputnik and these types of outlets, they've been hands-off of Trump. I mean, it's like Washington Post when it comes to Hillary Clinton. RT, Sputnik, they won't criticize Trump. They only criticize Clinton. That tells you something. I mean, the Russians do not want a world war. They would suffer horrible casualties. The Russians don't want war. The Russians want to protect their economic interests, and they want to have stability. That's what they want. That's what everybody wants. But the neocons want war, and they're backing Hillary Clinton because they think she's the one that will help deliver them more and more wars. And that's why these leaks, WikiLeaks, is maybe they're not knowing, maybe they don't even know that they're working with the Russians. I think that it's a viable theory that the Russians are behind these leaks. Just like I said, all of them are against the DNC. None of them are against Trump. So that's something very interesting to look at. I think back in the 60s is when there was that big shift in the parties. It went from the Republicans kind of being more or less like the civil liberties party and kind of the freedom party to them being more over to the very like hard kind of nationalist right-leaning party, and the Democrats took their place on the civil liberties end of things. And I think we may be dealing with a new shift here, in this election may be the signal where the Democrats really solidify their standing as the new like neocons, but kind of more socially acceptable neocons. And the Republicans are shifting in the direction of kind of like this hyper-nationalist, isolationist party. And so, we may be dealing with maybe not so much a complete breakup of the parties, but just a complete remake, a facelift maybe for these parties. And this is something that's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. It looks like, judging by like the media coverage and stuff, all of the political media stuff it's all kind of lining up behind Hillary Clinton. So you kind of already know where those eggs are kind of already being placed. If you look at the Washington Post, I think their editorial board made like their official endorsement like 2 or 3 days ago of Hillary Clinton, and pretty much all these big newspapers, New York Times, Washington Post, and these type of people are very much aligning behind Clinton and against Trump. So we know where they all stand. Not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing for Trump. I don't like Trump at all. I don't like Clinton at all. I think they're both horrible, but,
I've said all along, I think Clinton will win simply because, even though she's very unliked, she has just a massive apparatus at work for her. I can anticipate great civil unrest upon a Trump loss, because his people are angry, they're mobilized,
they're paranoid,
they're racist, they're xenophobic, they're everything that Obama supporters were, except they all have guns. And that movement scares me, and they're not going anywhere.
I could see this coming down to what would be considered a very, very close election. Looking at the poll numbers, and Trump is, the only thing Trump's got going for him is that he's masterful when it comes to the sound bites. And today, when we have another article up on the Anti-Media about how Trump stole Hillary Clinton's thunder today, because it's the DNC week. It's supposed to be all about Hillary Clinton and all about the Democrats. And Trump comes out today and he says, "Hey, you know what, Russia? If you do have the emails, put them out there." You know what I mean? And now all the headlines are about Trump. And Trump is masterful with the sound bites, and that's really the main thing that he has going for him. Even though the political media apparatus is lining up behind Clinton, they still have to cover his sound bites, and that's where he games the system, kind of.
Yeah, he's fresh, he's new. He doesn't actually represent shaking up, cleaning up Washington, but he's playing that role, and so he's drawing in a lot of people that want change, but aren't really educated enough to understand, what actually would need to change.
Exactly. And everything Trump is doing is a big distraction. But his appeals are working, and I think I could definitely see Trump winning the popular vote, and I could also see Hillary Clinton winning like the Electoral College in some way or another. And I agree with you, man. I think that could lead to some serious civil unrest that we haven't seen. I mean, what we've been seeing lately is rioting in black neighborhoods and stuff like that. But let's face it, the black population makes up less than 15%. The majority of Americans, maybe not the majority, but a lot of Americans are pretty much apathetic to the plight of the black community because it's not them. They don't care as much. If Trump were to lose and something fishy was going on and people started if you started seeing rioting in white middle-class neighborhoods and stuff like this, I mean, there would be a whole different reaction by the general population, as sad as that is, because as sad as it is that people don't care about the plight of the black community and minorities in this country, the majority of this country is made up of white middle class people, and if stuff started happening there, then people would flip out. And if you want to look at the case in point here, is the opioid epidemic and the heroin epidemic, and how when it started hitting white middle class areas, all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, something's got to be done about this. The crack epidemic and the drug epidemic and the mass incarceration, no big deal as long as it's only affecting poor inner city areas. But when this kind of stuff starts affecting middle class suburbs and stuff like that, all of a sudden people start caring about it. So this could be something very big that triggers a much broader issue. I don't know what it'll be or how it'll go down.
I guarantee you, if the situation, if it's close, I guarantee you Trump will say it was rigged, and if that's the case, there will be some kind of push for secession or some kind of if it's not a landslide, if it's even close, he will rally his people. And that's the sad thing, man, is that no matter who wins now, it's like when McCain picked Sarah Palin, and it's like, okay, now we have to deal with Sarah Palin for the rest of our life just because of one decision. If he hadn't picked Sarah Palin, no one would even know who she is. Well, now Trump, this is the rest of our lives too now, this Trump dynamic of America. This is a whole new demographic of people, whether he wins or loses. The most, in my opinion, irascible and idiotic of people are the ones who are actually getting like revolutionary, which is ironic and sad.
Yeah, man. And it's, Trump tapped into the same anger that Sanders tapped into, or a similar anger. And I think most of it stems from economic insecurity. The Trump people are more leaning towards xenophobia and blaming other people. The Sanders people are more likely to blame the rich and to blame Wall Street and to blame corrupt politicians and that kind of thing. But they tap into the same anger, and it really has come about from not only these trade agreements. That was kind of the starter. That was the thing that started the ball rolling. But then after 2008, the financial crisis and everything, it was really just the realization of the economy being gone. The real economy, the production economy that the United States used to be the hub of production around the world. It was gone after NAFTA got the ball rolling and it started disappearing. 2008 crisis hit and really wiped out everything, and the people haven't recovered, and so there's a huge vein of anger, and people are just wondering, like, why in the hell did I go from being a comfortable middle class American to living paycheck to paycheck? 75% of people have no savings in the United States. Everybody's wondering what the hell has gone on, and so people are looking for answers. The people with Trump are falling for the xenophobia stuff, which is definitely not the case. The people with Bernie Sanders were going after Wall Street and that kind of thing, which is kind of on point. But there's just this general anger out there, and that's what's fueling these movements. And it's not going to go away. And in fact, Clinton is only going to, if she ends up winning, it's only going to make it worse. It's just everything's just going to get worse and worse and worse. But maybe that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's the fast track to train wreck ideology. I've been interested in kind of seeing how the thought processing changes among people who have kids and people who don't have kids, because it definitely seems like people who, you know, have a family, have kids, you know, they definitely, and I understand it, they want to, you know, they want to keep this system, you know, afloat, and I get it. I wouldn't want to be raising kids through some kind of crazy revolution either. At the same time, it's like, do you really want your kids to grow up and then be living in a dystopic hell and look back and go and want and say to you, what the hell are you guys doing? You know, like, really? Like, and I think that's what's going to happen. And yeah, there's a very deep irony economically, in terms of, it's definitely all the anger is definitely about, you know, economic disparity. And the irony here is that we have a Democratic candidate that is, you know, pushing these neoliberal trade agreements, and then a conservative, you know, candidate who's against these neoliberal trade agreements. And, you know, there's almost a, I don't know, it feels like Clinton is more draconian than Trump to me on the trade issue, at least.
I think so too, and you know, Clinton has flip-flopped on it, and now, you know, supposedly, if you believe the rhetoric, she doesn't like the TPP. But
there's no way she's not going to pass the TPP.
I agree with you.
Obama is in love with it. She was for it at first, and then she realized that that in order to even have a chance against Bernie Sanders, she was going to have to go against it. Tim Kaine is for TPP. It's pretty much already been pushed through. Everyone's just waiting for, you know, like Christmas Eve or something to slide it on through. There's no way. If there were a betting market for it, maybe there is. I think there are politician markets now. I would seriously bet, like, I bet a lot of money that she is going to end up supporting TPP. So she's going to say, Go ahead.
Sorry, I was pulling up this video. So, according to CNN, Hillary Clinton has praised the TPP at least 45 times.
Wow. Yeah.
And then, of course, as we all know, she's gone back on it. Her vice presidential pick has been kind of the poster child of the TPP, according to what I've read. And I have this clip here from, when was it? 2012. She's speaking, and she's talking about the TPP. Here's the clip. Let's see what she has to say.
So it's fair to say that our economies are entwined, and we need to keep upping our game, both bilaterally and with partners across the region through agreements like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP. Australia is a critical partner. This TPP sets the gold standard in trade agreements to open, free, transparent, fair trade, an environment that has the rule of law and a level playing field. And when negotiated, this agreement will cover 40% of the world's total trade.
She's so smart.
Built in strong protections for workers and the environment.
It's pretty interesting, because I think that's pretty much what she said about NAFTA, too.
Yeah, it sounds to me like she really, really liked TPP until she found out that everyone didn't like it.
Exactly, and that's the thing, is that her rhetoric blows with the wind, but her policies are pretty much solidly in the favor of neoliberal economics and neoconservative foreign policies. So we can't believe a damn thing she says. She changes her opinion whenever something becomes unpopular, or whenever something becomes popular. And this goes back to what we were initially talking about with your friend, the guy that you're having a debate with, the gay guy. You know, Clinton, for the longest time, for her entire career, was against gay marriage. She was completely against it. And there's plenty of video that I could pull up where she's like, marriage should be between only a man and a woman, that's it. And then all of a sudden, when the public opinion shifts, and now like more than half the people in the country think gay marriage is acceptable, all of a sudden Clinton is a champion of gay marriage, and she's officiating gay marriages and stuff like that. It's like she's marching in the gay pride parade now. You know, it's just awful, dude.
It's across the board on issues. there's really not an issue, that a liberal issue that to cling to. I mean, and I know you're not, liberal. You don't identify like that, and I consider myself, probably I don't know. Maybe you could call me a radical leftist or anarcho-syndicalist or something fancy like that. But however you want to look at it, her policies are regressive, and she picks wedge identity politics issues to rally support behind an agenda that really does not help marginalized people at all. If you really wanted to help marginalized people, we would be dismantling the corporatocracy that is basically making it impossible for the middle class to grow, and it's making it possible for something like 50 people to own the same amount of wealth as like 500 million or some just sickening number.
Yeah.
The train is off the rails, and whoever you want to put in as the conductor, it's fine, but don't act like she's. It's a sad state, man.
It really is. And continuing on this DNC email leak, Facebook admitted that it accidentally, quote unquote, blocked the release of some of this information. And let me pull it up here. They blamed it on their algorithm and said that it accidentally blocked.
Blame the algorithm.
The WikiLeaks links. And then Google has also placed WikiLeaks on its list of like dangerous websites as well.
Oh, right.
So there's a pretty active how do I say this? An active censorship of WikiLeaks, because it is the stuff they're putting out there is really damaging to the Democratic Party, and so Facebook and then even Twitter was accused of removing something about the WikiLeaks DNC leaks from its trending topics. So
yeah.
It's a pretty active censorship here, and these companies can pretty conveniently just blame it on their algorithms and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was watching it really closely on that first day that the email thing broke. I was jumping around and looking all over and looking at who was prioritizing it and who wasn't, because anyone who knows that thing was going crazy, was going all over the place. It was viral everywhere, and yet you have Huffington Post not featuring it. You had Facebook not having it, or it showed up in the trends for a second and then disappeared. They were definitely censoring that.
Pretty sad state of affairs. It's interesting just to see how corruption gets covered up at the highest levels. All these players, whether it be Facebook or Google, I mean, the Google CEO sits on the board of like Pentagon-funded, government think tanks, and like these guys are just so intertwined, and they're so vested in continuing the status quo that they'll all work together to ensure the results that they're looking for. And it goes back to how this entire primary was rigged against Bernie Sanders. It's not something to take lightly, dude. Like this, America's supposed democracy is now becoming completely exposed as a fraud, and the majority of our institutions in the United States are kind of just taking it in stride and just like, oh, whatever. It's just okay, yeah, and let's blame Russia for this institutional corruption instead of kind of having a good look in the mirror and re-examining the state of American democracy, because goddamn, I think a lot of people, I would say a record amount of people in the United States, are really under the impression that we don't have a democracy anymore. And instead of like legitimately looking at it and at least rhetorically saying we're going to make reforms and we're going to stop this corruption, every one of these major institutions is just kind of like, let's just either censor it or just pretend it's not happening. It's really, really concerning.
On a positive note, though, this is an election in which I think certain disguises and masks are starting to come down. I think there's a growing awareness of the corruption. I think there's a variety of movements that hopefully can start to converge. I personally think there needs to be left, right, center coalition of people uniting around specific issues and putting other issues on the back burner. But I think you know, and you wrote an article about this, Nick. I can't remember what it was called, but it was something about you know, this is the year that Americans realize that their country is corrupt, and it's, you know, I mean, that's a, you know, obviously not true across the board, but there definitely seems to be, we're hitting a point of no return where it seems like it's in the zeitgeist. It feels like there's an awakening, and just with the spread of information right now, they can't conceal this stuff anymore, and with knowledge comes, you know, power, and hopefully, you know, hopefully more people will start to, you know, band together and work together on a local level, because that's the only way any of this can be challenged is agorism, as I think the term you use.
Exactly, man, and you make a good point. There is a lot of positives that can be taken from this, and there was that who was it? I think some psychologist or some profound thinker one time said that if 10% of a population hold a belief deeply, over time that belief will become mainstream. And it only takes 10% to begin with. And I think we've reached that point now. As you mentioned, I think there is about at least 10% or more of the people in the United States that understand what is actually happening, at least with our democracy. And like I said in that article, 2016, the year Americans found out our elections are rigged. I mean, it's a general statement, because I know I've been knowing since 2012. There's been a lot of people that have been knowing since the Bush-Gore debacle in Florida and all that. People since 2000 have been like, okay, yeah, no, something is fishy going on. But this year, and especially now, there was all these accusations, there was all these assumptions and all these theories. But now WikiLeaks kind of confirms it. Look, they put the information out there. The DNC was rigging the election against Bernie Sanders. There's no other way to slice it.
It's amazing.
10% of the people are deeply holding these beliefs now, and eventually, according to like group psychology, this belief will become mainstream. And so it's only a matter of time, and that's the positive thing. It's like, look, yeah, we're dealing with a bunch of corruption. We're dealing with a bunch of bad shit. Foreign policy run wild. Police state domestically. You know, divided country. But you know what? The idea that our democracy is under siege and that it's been corrupted and it's run by an oligarchy, that is going to become a mainstream belief very soon. And I don't know if it's going to be by the next election, 2020 or 2024, but that belief will become mainstream, and there's going to be a major challenge to the status quo. Hopefully we're still around to see that happen. But, you know, I think it will happen. And that's the positive thing that we could take out of this, is that people, this information is being freed up. And as much as they try to censor this shit, you know what? The more they try to censor it, the more it gets out there. Because our most viral article so far this year has been about how Facebook tried to censor the last WikiLeaks dump about Hillary Clinton. And that was our most viral article of the year so far. So the more they try to censor this stuff, the more the information gets out there. They're not going to stop it. And all they can do is delay the inevitable, which is the people start realizing, you know, the people start dropping the curtain and seeing who's behind it, and they see the Wizard of Oz back there, and they find out he's just a little old man. And that's what we are dealing with here, is a bunch of little old men that are scared and that are greedy and that don't give a shit about anybody else. They're all running the show, and we're all being we're all victims of this Ponzi scheme that they're running against all of us, and it's only going to last so much longer before the pitchforks come out and people start getting really pissed off. And I don't know if it's going to be this year. I mean, we're going to have to wait and see. It doesn't seem like there's going to be any rioting or anything outside the DNC this year, but it's not over yet. But you know, it's only a matter of time before people really get together on this, and you know, maybe they won't fix it, but they're going to at least know that there's something wrong.
Hopefully someday when you and I are in a hospital bed dying, we'll look out the window and we'll see little robots with flowers in their hair in a line, holding hands and dancing around, and there will be a utopia.
There you go, man. That's what we got to see. Okay. So,
Hey, I gotta have hope. I gotta have a dream.
we all do. It wasn't that a Melania quote, Trump? I have a dream. No, I'm just.
Yeah, I think she. Yeah,
Uh,
that was an original quote by her.
yeah, that was funny. Really funny.
I loved how that. I'm sure anti-media posted on that,
Yeah.
but what an incredible waste of public consciousness to be focusing on that for 3 days.
And you know what? The funny thing is that Trump still got a poll bump after the convention. It didn't hurt him at all.
No, he got a huge bump, and I'm wondering if Clinton's going to get a bump.
It's hard to say because there's all the headlines have been distracted with all this WikiLeaks stuff. And again, it goes back to the idea that WikiLeaks is definitely. I mean, I don't want to slam WikiLeaks at all. I think WikiLeaks is an awesome organization. I don't think Julian Assange is a bad guy, but you could definitely see a little bit of bias in against Hillary Clinton. I don't think it's pro-Trump, but I think it's against Hillary Clinton. And anybody who's a student of geopolitics and a student of history would do the same, dude. I mean, if you look at our coverage on the anti-media, it's mostly look at this horrible shit Hillary Clinton is doing because, you know what, the rest of the media has already pretty much endorsed Hillary Clinton. Like I said, Washington Post is officially going in, and Huffington Post is pretty much officially behind Clinton. I mean, all the big players in the media, except for the fringes on the right, like maybe Drudge Report and like Breitbart and some of these smaller websites, none of them have the reach that Washington Post has, have gotten behind Trump. I mean, the entire mechanism, the political mechanism, is lining up behind Clinton, and so it's people like WikiLeaks and us and others who have to do the heavy lifting as far as trying to really pick apart the record and the things that Hillary Clinton has done, because the rest of the media and the rest of the institutions like Facebook and Twitter and even Reddit, they're all kind of already in the bag for Clinton, and they're not going to do anything to stop her. Everybody's lining up against Trump, and everyone knows Trump's a piece of shit, but there's no swaying his supporters. They're already made their minds up. They're already done. They've already the light switch in their head is already off. I think that there's a little bit more possibilities with the people over slightly to the left that we could actually convince them that, hey, look, both Clinton and Trump are pieces of shit. Let's try to look at other options.
I looked really hard when I was writing that thing about the words I wanted Bernie Sanders to say, because at first I was going to have him, I was going to, speculate on, maybe he'll wake up and want to run a third party. And so I looked it up. I looked at numerically, would it even be mathematically possible? He has a huge, huge following. So if he split the votes between Hillary and Trump, likely what would happen is that no one would get the full electoral number, in which case the House of Representatives decides it, which of course is Republican controlled. But I don't think they're fervently Trump. But yeah, there was really no way. The sad thing is I don't think, even if there were a path, I still don't think Sanders would have done it. He went as far as he could go in terms of he couldn't think that big. Yeah, I mean, he could have been the kind of person that people will be talking about in 100 years if he had just really said, nope, I'm going independent, F you guys, all of you. Instead, the movement will carry on, and it's going to be kind of like, in 10 years, I think it'll probably be like what Occupy is now, just kind of like a meme that is invoked. But the problem is, for me at least, in my opinion, I think a lot of the momentum behind the Bernie Sanders movement, unfortunately, I think is a lot of sound and fury, signifying very little. I think a vast majority of them are only tune in every 4 years. And it's more of an emotional thing, and I'm not sure that, kind of like the Trump people, I'm not sure they understand the core systemic things going on, and I'm not sure that this is going to translate into a movement that becomes, organized on a local level. I really hope I'm wrong. We'll see.
Well, I hope it happens, man. And, trying to end this show tonight on a positive note, tell us a little bit about your article, because it was an amazing article, and I think it's been our most viral of the week so far.
Really?
Yeah, it did really well. And it was 5 words that I wanted to hear Bernie Sanders say tonight. I mean, that was a couple of days ago, but tell us about what this article is about, because to me it makes a lot more sense than holding your nose and voting for Hillary Clinton, or saying, you know what, let's go all in for Trump and I don't give a shit about anybody else. I mean, tell us about your article.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, I was really hoping that, I hate Ted Cruz, obviously. I disagree with him on every single issue. But I was very impressed with what he did at the Republican convention. I'm not going to lie. I gained a lot of respect for him. I thought that was just amazing. He just, he could have did what Kasich did, and Kasich just said, no, I'm not going to go. I'm going to sit it out. I'm not going to endorse, but I'm not going to go to the convention. Instead, Cruz got up there and said, basically F you to the entire Republican establishment. Now, many say he's committed political suicide, and he may very well have, but what he did, it was unprecedented and incredible. And that kind of courage, and yeah, I'm calling it courage, man. I mean, I know it's a strategic play, hedging that Trump will lose badly, and then he can be the 2020 runner-up. Or if Trump gets in and then does terribly, he can come in and run against him. Obviously, there was strategic moves there, but I was hoping there was a little bit of Ted Cruz and Bernie Sanders. A little bit of, no, things need to change. I refuse to give in to this establishment. So what I wanted Bernie to do, I knew he wasn't going to get up there and say, I don't endorse. I knew he wasn't going to say, vote your conscience. That was simply not going to happen. They would have broken his kneecaps right there on stage if he had said that. I was hoping he would do something a little bit more coded, and so the words I wanted him to say was join the left-right alliance, which doesn't sound like much, but it would have meant a whole lot, because right now there's a big movement led by Ralph Nader to try and connect progressives, libertarians, and even conservatives and independents into a coalition of people that are against military intervention abroad, who are against the Patriot Act, against TPP, against federal money being spent on bailouts and defense contractors, and there's a core group. There's like 25 issues that he wrote about. There's 25 issues where those groups overlap and actually agree, and so he's trying to organize them. And I think that's the only way we're going to see real change. I think that's the only way, is people from these different movements have got to join together. And that's why it's so disappointing how Alex Jones went. Because, he just went crazy. But, we need... so that's what I wanted to hear Bernie Sanders say is, people from across the spectrum need to join together in order to approach this. Instead, he just went full Democrat and just gave the standard stump speech for Hillary. It was very disappointing.
And then 2 days later, he left the Democratic Party and went back to his independent seat in the Senate after saying that there's no chance for an independent to win the presidency. Yeah, it was disappointing, but you're right. The only way that we're going to get change out of this is by uniting together the true left, right, everyone else in the middle. Real issues.
and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.